Hey everyone, today we have a special guest on the pod, journalist, managing editor of Cinema Blend, co-host of Real Blend Podcast, and author of Release the Snyder Cut, the crazy true story behind the fight that saved Zack Snyder's Justice League. With great power, how Spider-Man conquered Hollywood during the golden age of comic book blockbusters, and his newest book coming out June 11th, titled Bruce Willis, celebrating the cinematic legacy of an unbreakable Hollywood icon. Sean O'Connell, welcome to the pod.
It's good to be here. Whenever you guys are introducing me, I'm combing your backgrounds to see what cool stuff you have. I see a Miss Minutes up there.
Yes,
Obviously, Don't Worry,
yes.
Darling. Excellent, excellent
I
poster.
I would show my background, but my room is a complete mess right now. But it's all horror posters, so I'm a big horror nerd.
I'll take your word for it.
Your background is also pretty nice as well. Nice and organized too. I like the
Oh my gosh. Thank you for saying that. It
Oh,
has
it's so much better.
it's got a little of my OCD. The DVDs, this is my filing system. They are filed by director,
Oh, nice.
which is bizarre.
I was gonna say I haven't heard that. I haven't heard a organization style that way, but I kind of like it though.
It's to me it's a faster way to find something that I'm looking for.
Is it both Spider-Man posters? Is that No Way Home I see on the bottom?
Yeah, so that's a No Way Home one on the bottom.
Okay.
The friends of mine at Sony sent me the Spider Monday posters to celebrate all the ones coming back to theaters
Nice.
in time for I think Far From Home is coming up this Monday, and then No Way Home is right after that.
Yeah, I was gonna
And
say
then
because I just had Homecoming come out.
on the floor over there is my prized possession. It's an autographed cast photo for Madam Web.
That should
Actually,
be that should have been blown up for the whole wall. That should have just been like a wallpaper.
it's not even that. I actually just rewatched that today. I rewatch, but background noise. But it's just so funny that you even said that.
Yeah, it's I can't bring myself to put it in a frame. I just don't think the poster even deserves a frame, so it just lays on the floor back here.
But no, so yeah, Bruce Willis celebrating the cinematic legacy of an unbreakable Hollywood icon. Great. I mean, we were talking about right before we kind of jumped right on. Great book. We all agreed. It was like it's almost like the TCM intros for all those movies put into like a book form in like the
Oh,
best way possible. Because it's like movies that I didn't even hear of some of them. Like The Player, I like had to like do research on. I'm like, oh, I want to watch that movie now. Like it was just
that's
like made me like think about other movies I'd never even heard of.
that's awesome. Thank you so much. It's tough. His career is obviously it spanned decades. And one of the things that I really loved about him and wanted to show off over the course of this book is how versatile he was. I think he gets pigeonholed as an action hero, which he should. I mean, obviously, Die Hard launched his career and he fell back onto that genre often. But as you see in the book, I kind of do it into, I break his career up into different sections: science fiction and comedy, and the work that he did with sort of the auteur filmmakers, the Wes Andersons of the world, and Quentin, obviously, and M. Night Shyamalan and Brian De Palma and people like that, because I think people just forget, and as I've been doing interviews for the book, it's been so much fun to like remind hosts of shows that like, oh yeah, Bruce was in this, and they're like, and everyone's like, oh my God, that's right, like Armageddon or The Fifth Element, or because everyone knows the hits, the biggest hits, but when you start to round out all of the films he's in, I kind of just thought once he announced his retirement, he deserved a book that celebrated specifically just his films and his film work, because I think he's a tremendous actor.
Exactly.
I mean, you just said kind of why you chose Bruce Willis as
Mm.
the center of this book. But is there another actor or actress's like filmography you would like to do this kind of like deep dive into in this same format?
Do you know, having tackled this? No. Because Bruce was in 115 movies, and I wanted to be a completist and really watch every single one of them. And as you see in the back of the book, there's a capsule review of every movie that he ever appeared in, and that includes the direct to DVD ones that he'd been doing over the back half of his career. Which I think he ended up doing 40 of those titles.
Yeah.
And very few of them are watchable. So that was a tough slog. But one of the things that kind of appealed to me about doing it for Bruce at this point, and the book was sort of inspired around the time that he announced his retirement, it meant that there would be a complete body of work, to sort of summarize. And if I chose to do someone like Harrison Ford, or Julia Roberts, like it would nag me the fact that they could potentially still be adding movies to their filmography. I did a Spider-Man one. It covered from the 1960s, a Spider-Man book that covered from the 1960s all the way up to No Way Home. And even that was kind of tough at the end of it to just be like, well, they're going to keep making Spider-Man movies, and but this one was a little bit the pinnacle because it brought them all together. So yeah, I was selfishly kind of happy that that his career was, finished, and that I could sort of write about it in its totality.
Yeah, so when I read the book, one of the things that so your insights into all of his movies and just him as an actor was really actually eye-opening and made me do like a double take on some of the movies that like I love. I mean, my favorite Bruce Willis movie is The Fifth Element, like
Mm.
hands down. I used to watch that all the time. I still will put it on when it when I see it pop up. Um, but so when exactly did you have the clarity? Like, what movie was it that Bruce actually like shined in ensemble casts? Because it's almost like inherently like when you're speaking about him, it's like he's always elevating his cast members. So it's kind of like I never actually thought of it that way
Right.
when I've seen Bruce Willis in movies, and I'm like, he really is in a lot of movies where it's like it's not just him. There's Red, Expendables, and everything, but he's always just like everybody else is always just getting like booked up because of his role. So like, when is it that you realize that?
Honestly, while researching this book,
Oh,
it wasn't something that I thought about in terms of him. I assumed, because he's such a massive movie star, that he's front and center. He's the name above the title, or the face on the poster. But there became so many examples of films where he was so happy to be just part of, a group of people, as long as they were all working towards the same goal, whether it be The Whole Nine Yards, where he's really playing straight man to Matthew Perry, and letting him get all the sort of physical pratfalls. Um, Obviously, he's in the Expendables. I'm not quite sure that he's elevating most of the people in that. Death Becomes Her, where he's content to really be a wallflower, and let Goldie Hawn and Meryl Streep shine, because they're giving two
mm-hmm.
of the greatest performances, in a dark comedy like that. There were so many examples that just kept coming up, and I think a lot of it goes back to his earliest days on Moonlighting, where it wasn't just him and Sybil Shepherd. It was also, oh my gosh, now I'm blanking on their names, but the two of the girl who played the receptionist and then her boyfriend. It was like the four of them together who were all playing for laughs, and that became Bruce's thing. And to his, I think, because it bothers me that he never got an Academy Award nomination. Like, the Academy never recognized him, but in Pulp Fiction, every other person who's in that movie got a nomination. Travolta, Uma Thurman, Sam Jackson, Quentin, obviously. In The Sixth Sense, M. Night gets nominated, the film gets nominated, Toni Collette and Haley Joel Osment all get nominated. But like, what is that movie without Bruce? Like, how does that happen? In 12 Monkeys, Brad Pitt chews the scenery left and right, and he gets nominated, but Bruce is like quiet and subdued and carries that whole film and doesn't get recognized. So sometimes I feel he was an ensemble guy, to a fault, because then the Academy just thought like, oh, well, everyone around him is doing such a much better job. But it's an incredible strength of his.
Yeah, I think Jimmy actually had a question about the Oscar nominations that he was missed out on.
Yeah, so I mean all these movies, his ensemble and the directors and everyone get nominated and possibly win, as a like with Pulp Fiction. But what movie do you think he most deserved the nomination for and possibly the win?
I mean, I would say either Pulp Fiction, he should have been part of that conversation. The Sixth Sense, obviously, but I think his best performance, honestly, uh, is 12 Monkeys. 12 Monkeys is such a difficult role because we're supposed to be questioning the entire time whether he's legitimately from the future or all of this stuff is in his mind. And Terry Gilliam, handles it beautifully, and keeps us kind of on our toes. But if Bruce's performance isn't as thorough as it is, as convincing as it is, there's some truly beautiful moments in there where he's with Madeline Stowe and he's kind of accepting the fact that like, you know what? I think I'm actually crazy, and I think all this stuff that I think is happening in the future isn't real. And he allows himself to be happy for like a brief moment, and it's such a brilliant performance. Um, but I just think that the Academy is such a political body, and I think that Bruce just annoyed them. I don't know if it was partially his arrogance or if partially they viewed him as, an action star and not an actor. Because you don't see his counterparts, getting a ton of recognition outside of like Stallone, for Rocky early on. Um, yeah, I just don't think that they took him seriously. But those three for sure are the titles where he should have been in contention and he didn't even get a nomination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like every time you brought that up in the book, I was like, it's definitely because like probably the Oscars are very weird genres. So like him being an action star definitely was. They were like, ooh, do we want to touch this? Is it okay to nominate him? Are they going to be
Right.
okay with that? But also in your Looper chapter, you said that Bruce Willis was the one that got away for an interview. So I
Oh,
was curious what would be the question you would ask him if you were given the chance to interview him.
that's a great question. I would want to ask him about um when he figured out or how he perfected the art of being quiet. I think he is one of the most like the scene in Pulp Fiction where he gets introduced essentially, and it's Marcellus Wallace talking to him for I believe it's 7 or 8 minutes. And he has such confidence to sit there with the camera on him, not saying a word. And I think that that's such an intimidating situation for an actor to be in. He's acting with such very little. And I would like to ask him about the art of that because I think that gets overlooked, of how tough it is to just sit in yourself and to know that you have the screen presence. It's all screen presence. Like Bruce had that from the get-go. But he went from an early stage of just being the charismatic fast talker to understanding that it's okay for me to just sit here in silence. And I would like to sort of explore that with him, that concept. When did he realize that it was okay to just embrace the quiet and to sit in silence and let your face do most of your acting for you? And which filmmakers or which directors maybe, helped him sort of figure out that he had that ability. Because I think that's a unique trait of his that I'd like to explore.
No, definitely. Because I didn't really know. I forgot that he was much more of like a just all face acting. You think of him more as the like over the top, or not over the top, but like the action star, and you kind of forget that like he's also very good at just like leaning against the wall and just letting all the face do the work.
Yep. And even like in Sixth Sense, how much he's able to just he's feeding Haley Joel, with 1 or 2 word responses and letting this child actor give one of the greatest child actor performances, of our generation, basically at this point. He knows enough not to do too much in so many of these movies. Like if I overdo it, I'm gonna kind of take away from what my co-star is doing. And I think Bruce excels at that.
Yeah, bouncing off of that. So like one of the things like in your book in almost all of his roles is that you mentioned a couple times is, him being able to like lay back in the quiet and like almost in every role he had is always playing some form of the straight man
Mm,
in a sense, always looking for justice, even in like gritty movies like Sin City, somehow he still always has that straight man type of like persona going on.
yeah.
So one of the things that I was thinking about is like the actor landscape that we have now. Like we said, there's almost like no more people that we like. There's no other actors that were almost like there are movie stars. Like movie stars almost don't exist anymore in like the media landscape that we're in.
Hmm.
So is there an actor that you can think of that kind of like I feel like playing the straight man also is like really difficult for people or to get that through to have such charisma like Bruce. So, is there an actor who you think could kind of hit that caliber of movie star but doing the types of roles that Bruce Willis can do? Kind of that quiet, slick back, like give that type of performance where it's like for like we talk about the Sixth Sense. We're like that's Bruce Willis's movie, but he didn't even get nominated for an Oscar for it.
Right. I know. Yeah. It's so I would tend to look at like comedies to see who's setting up the broader comic. And not that I think that this is the answer, but Mark Wahlberg does it sometimes. You
Mm,
know, he
okay.
plays the quiet guy who's setting up a big Will Ferrell performance. Um, Michael Shannon is another guy who, you know, he's happy to be an ensemble if he's setting up other people.
Mhm.
But these aren't, I'm not saying that they're not movie stars. They are absolutely movie stars.
Oh
But
yeah.
like Willis was on a level with like a Paul Newman, you know, or even a Harrison Ford or someone like that. I don't know if we have that anymore. I was just looking at a list of the 10 most like bankable young
Oh yeah,
stars.
I saw that.
And it's like Austin Butler and Timothy Chalamet, and you know, they're not doing this. And part of it is, I guess, Hollywood isn't making the movies that Bruce Willis made. Um, is it Damon? You know, is it Damon now? When Damon shows up in Oppenheimer and you know gives his parts and moves on, you know, he's part of the bigger ensemble. Maybe that's who it is. Uh I don't know, to be honest with you. And that's a little bit why, you know, another reason why I wanted to write this is because I think this is a bygone era. I think that the industry has changed so much that now it's, of course, audiences were going to theaters for IP. You know, we're going for bigger
Yeah.
franchises. Um, and it felt like, is it Glenn Powell? I don't know. Maybe it's Glenn Powell. Maybe if Glenn Powell starts doing a few more dramatic things, you know, maybe he's in his Die Hard phase right now, and sooner or later he's gonna mature. But Bruce had to mature into it, you know, like
Yeah.
he was doing Blind Date and Hudson Hawk and things like that. So he had his early stage, Last Boy Scout and films like that, where he was, you know, boisterous and loud and the tough guy. He grew into those things. So Pitt's kind of grown into that now. You know, Brad Pitt's sort of grown into that
Mhm.
more mature stage. It's
But yeah.
possible. I just don't see it. I don't see it.
But that's why I enjoyed the book so much, because it was just a testament, such a testament to his career, that it, like, when I thought like that, I was like, I can't really think of anyone who matches that as of now.
Right.
As of now.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, Glenn Powell, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like he's doing his comedy parts like what Bruce Willis did with like Blind Date and all that stuff. And I feel like Twister could be his like Die Hard, and then he goes and does like, oh, I want to work with these certain directors now. Like I feel like you're right. He's probably the closest one I can think of that's like has potential.
Well, the actors who work with specific directors, the way the sort of Bruce chased after them is um the Joaquin Phoenix, you know,
Yeah.
wants to work with he wants to work with Paul Thomas Anderson. He wants to work with uh well, he's doing Joker now at this point. But Brad Pitt, obviously, it's not Leo. Leo's in a class of his own, you know, like
Yeah.
he's not even
yeah.
comparable to anybody else, sort of at that point. Action stars. What I love about Bruce and even actors of that generation, Keanu you know, people who were being in those action films, they were vulnerable and they were relatable. The hero nowadays is completely different. It's The Rock,
Yeah.
you know, and Rock's not doing dramatic work. You know, Rock can't do Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Who is that actor who can be in Armageddon, you know, and then do, you know, The Sixth Sense right after it? Like, I don't think that person exists. I'm not sure that they're still out there.
What would you
Yeah.
think about Tom Cruise? I mean, we've seen him that he's able to do dramatic, but he's kind of cut that out of most of his recent movies. With
So,
just
in my heart, I believe that we have a 20-year period coming up for Cruise where he goes back to being a character actor,
Mhm.
you know, where he gets into his Newman Redford phase and just knocks out like classics because he can't do the action stuff anymore. He's gotta get to a point where he just stops dropping motorcycles out of helicopters. He has to. And we, like you said, we know exactly that he can do Magnolia and Rain Man and, you know, Born on the 4th of July. He's capable of that.
Yeah.
But like, is he ever going to choose to go back and do all that stuff? Because yes, I would love to see him get back to doing that.
But I will say in your book you put like the Bruce Willis Mount Rushmore. So like since our podcast we kind of just talk about the IMDb top 250 list.
Mm,
He has 3 movies on that list. So it's The Sixth Sense, Die Hard, and Pulp Fiction.
okay.
So I wanted to know, since you did your Mount Rushmore, Out of those three, how would you rank those?
Die Hard has to be one. I mean, it's a perfect movie. And it's a lazy answer, but it's a flawless movie. After that, I'm going Sixth Sense above Pulp Fiction. But I mean, they're like, neck and neck. On any given day, it could be one over the other. I just think the Sixth Sense is such a cool magic trick. Like even when you know the ending, it's still fun to go back and rewatch it all come together. The scene in the traffic jam between Tony Collette and Haley Joel Osment is an all-timer. Like I will cry every time I watch that movie. And Pulp Fiction shouldn't exist. Like that movie's too good. The stretch of acting that Bruce gives in that movie after he's broken free from the basement and he's choosing which weapon to use to go back down into the basement to confront the Gimp is some of the craziest, most fun acting I've ever seen. And again, speechless. Doesn't say a word. He stops at the door with his facial reactions. He determines like, I'm free. I should run. No, I guess I should go back and help this guy. And then he goes from like weapon to weapon to weapon to choose which one to go. It's a masterclass. It's God, he's so good. He's so good at it. So, but I'm putting it third on that list. As crazy
Okay.
as that sounds.
But you're right. It's because as we were talking about like Tom Cruise and stuff. I'm like, oh, that should be your next. That would be an interesting like arc for a story. Like he did Mission Impossible. That was his main thing, and he could possibly go on to do other like Redford stuff. But you're right. You can't just be like, well, I think this is what's going to happen. It's hard to do it when their filmography isn't complete.
Also, I'm confident that one day we're going to wake up and just see in a headline that Tom Cruise died on a set somewhere.
Oh,
Yeah, probably. That
Under-
last one,
definitely.
that was their promotion. It was just them be like, is he dead? No, I don't know.
I don't want it to happen, but
No,
I'm
yeah.
telling you that that's what's going to happen one day.
I mean, that's pretty much almost what happened with Bruce Willis, where we all woke up that one morning when the article was released that he was retiring
Yeah.
from a form of almost dementia. And it was just, and then it made sense as to why he was with Demi Moore and his family with his new wife during COVID, and why he made that string of direct to streaming, direct to DVD movies that people were like, this is just horrible films.
I still don't quite understand why someone on his team didn't step in and say, I don't really know why you're doing these movies. There's I hate to say that like that he was being manipulated, but it just feels like, does Bruce Willis need money? Like Nick Cage is taking a lot of these parts because he owes taxes apparently.
Yeah.
So there might be something there because those movies are terrible. And if you watch them from the perspective of knowing that Bruce shot from maybe 2 days and then they use strategic body doubles, or ADR dialogue, like all that stuff is really obvious as you're watching those movies. And it's like, how did his team, how did the people around him let him actually do this? So that's a mystery I was not able to unlock, in researching all of this is why exactly did he do these? So,
But you also handled the opening with kind of like setting up saying like he retired and all this stuff, and it's sad to see it, but like this is more of like a celebration. I thought you handled that like really well. Like it was like it wasn't to be sad. It was like, look at all the movies we have now, which I thought was
thank
great.
you. Because you saying that because obviously, one thing that you sort of open yourself up to when you do a project like this is like, and I've heard this already from people, oh, you're just trying to capitalize on his illness. And it's like, no, that's not the point of this at all. Like the point is, the question that I asked myself when the retirement announcement came out was, I was genuinely sad. Like it actually affected me. And then I was like, well, why is this so important? Why does this matter? What are we losing here? And I was like, well, we're losing someone who contributed all of this over the course of years. And I'd been a fan of his since Moonlighting, and Die Hard is my answer to the film that sort of opened my eyes to cinema, and I kind of embraced that anti-hero role that he took on, the sarcastic, quippy, fly in the face of authority hero. And so I've been charting Bruce's career my entire life. I just didn't even still realize until stepping back and looking at it in totality, like all of the stuff that he accomplished, even with his big swings and failures, the Bonfire of the Vanities of the world, and Last Man Standings and movies that he took because he liked the director, but it didn't necessarily go the way that he wanted it to go. So
No, yeah, I really appreciate you coming on again. It was so much fun talking to you.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it as well too. And I'm really glad to hear you enjoyed the book. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yes.
Once we haven't gotten to any Bruce Willis movies yet, so when we get to that, you're more than welcome to come back on the pod and talk about it.
Please, I would love to. I'd be honored.
But yeah, thank you so much. So your book, Bruce Willis Celebrating the Cinematic Legacy of an Unbreakable Hollywood Icon, comes out June 11th. And where is it? Just on Amazon? Like, where can you get the book? Everywhere?
Yes, exactly. Yep, Amazon. It'll be in bookstores, Barnes and Nobles, and all those different places. But yeah, you can find it any place you want to find them online.
Thank you so much again. It was such a fun read, this book. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank
Good speaking
you.
with you. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.